that's going
Okay, I have to prove it.
to. So I'm not going to show you that I'm rolling out my my legs right now. I'm not going to not sharing with my foam roller.
Well, well, who says we're not healthy? 20% of the call is on a treadmill right now.
Like it. I'd love to know what kind of under desk treadmill you guys have, because I mean, I sit in the office. Some days I don't move. It's unhealthy. I'm just too busy. So I wouldn't mind
Well,
having something like that for meetings.
I
Like,
wouldn't recommend mine because mine broke too. That was the other problem.
Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to use a couple of minutes to talk very real quick about my EO as I when you normally do. Can you guys see my screen?
sure can.
Okay, so
Sorry.
if you go to the EO website, right, to the hub.eonetwork.org, you will find a lot of stuff around here. And one of the course, the areas you will find is my EO here. So if you go to my EO, you will find all sorts of information about how to create groups, create event, whatever. But there's two places that you really want to put your attention on. One is the groups, and there's over 500 groups dedicated to specific passions, interests, both personal, business, family, etc., all around the world. But the other point of interest, which I want to highlight today, is the My EO events. So if we go to explore My EO events here, you will see a lot of different events that start just scrolling up here. And sometimes you will see, oh, there's a wine tasting tonight. And then you click here, and this maybe is in Munich or in South Africa or somewhere, right? So that's not exactly where you will want to go. You will want to find something a bit closer. So that's where you would go to search my EO events, right? And then here you would say, okay, let's find Boston, for example, right? Oh, look at that. Next week we have my EO event where we're going to do experience share around AI. So if any of you have been trying to get started with AI, have succeeded, have failed, whatever, we're going to get together, and the chapter is going to pay for dinner. So it's not a bad thing to do at all, right? And for those that go to TLC in Hawaii, you can take a look here at the so many activities that members all around the world have been setting up for us. Is anybody joining any of this? I know some of us here are going to Hawaii, right?
Yeah. I haven't signed up for anything yet. I started poking around.
Okay, so the problem is going to be that there's too many options. Okay, and actually that's only one of the many things. For those of you here that are not part of the board, this is one of the cool things about being on the board, is that we go every year to GLC, most of us. And in addition to the learning, to the sharing experiences with other chairs from EO boards all around the world, there's a lot of activities like this where we get together, where we have fun, where we learn from each other, etc. So if you have ever considered joining the board and you don't have enough incentives, right? This is just the last one that I'm sure will make it totally impossible not to join the board of the EO Boston chapter. So that's what I wanted to share today. So I'm gonna give back the scene to Adam and Chris.
Yes, thank you, Luis. And thanks everyone for joining today. So today we have Chris. He's going to be talking about really how to plan the perfect forum retreat. So Chris, we're really looking forward to this. Take it away.
Be afraid, everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Raise your hand, nod, walk on a treadmill. All
Chris,
right, so
are you
yes,
recording,
Jumping
Chris?
jacks.
Are you recording, Chris?
I'm recording it. I've also already put my presentation in the chat. So if you're not getting value, or if you only have 10 minutes, take it. There's lots of links, sell it, do whatever you want. When you do see on these slides, there's a little blue thing. That's a link. That means you can click out and take advantage of it. For those who've not seen me talk and speak, I am fast, I am loud, I think I know it all. My comments do not necessarily reflect those of EO Boston, and even my own company, Ember, likes to distance themselves. So I'm a little phrase recorded. And the big asterisk I will get is, although I've been a member of EO Boston for a year, I've actually not attended a retreat. So that's my first one's coming up in May. But I actually read the Creating Powerful Retreats. There's a great guide that EO has on the My EO they can do. So the angle I'm going to bring to this is a little bit about my 25 years of designing everything from really big events to really small events curated out in the middle of nowhere. And I always like to start. The other thing is I actually own an event venue that we do about 45 offsites a year at that we host at our property. So I'm going to bring in some of that learnings to share with you all here. But I first want to start with a story. And the story starts like this. Back in 2016, some of you might have kids, is about every college kid in 2016 bought 2 pairs of Sperry's. And Sperry went from 320 million to 850 million in the span of 12 months. And as all trends go, things stop and they went right down to 600 million the next year. And about 18 months later, everyone decided to start running road races, doing a color run, doing a Tough Mudder, right? And so Saucony, who is a sister company of Sperry, said, we see a challenge coming. And they gave us a simple brief. Hey, Chris and Ember, we need to get our customers out somewhere where we can have a private conversation about how we're going to weather this storm. Can you design an offsite for 15 to 17 people on that? And that's a great objective. And really what we started with was what they wanted to do. And so although we found this cool up and coming former mining town owned by a German oil baron outside of Telluride, that was about $28,000 a night for a full group buyout with accommodations for 25. What we did is we actually built a platform in the middle of this fields with the San Juan surrounded with them. And we had the president of Saucony, Pat, right there around his 17 best customers who account about 45% of specialty retail. And he asked them one question. How can we be the best manufacturer to weather the storm and still thrive as we come out of this problem? And for 3.5 hours, they talked. And he actually made decisions like, oh, this was back when Amazon effect was starting. He's like, oh, you just want the shoes 2 weeks before we give it to Amazon? You're cool with us with DTC? You just want your customers to get an opportunity to buy it first. Great. That led to over $35 million in incremental growth. We did product sessions. Simple as this. Here's the shoes that are coming 3 years from now in the pipeline. They'll be in your doors in 2020. Of course, we had cool transportation when you're flying in outside of you kind of going into Grand Junction. We actually helicoptered everyone in because helicopters off season when there's not backcountry skiing costs about $3,000 for 2 hours. And we had all 20 attendees fly in. And I tell my team, it was like MASH, although my team doesn't know what MASH was, my younger team members. We had fly fishing on property. And what was really cool about this property, there was thermal hot springs all around it. So some of the cabins actually had small thermal hot springs behind them. And then the final thing, the CEO came out and said, hey guys, we don't want ASICs or Nike money. It's not going to be John Mayer, but this guy sold 50 million records, plays at Live Aid. Please welcome from Men at Work, Colin Hay. And Colin Hay played a 45-minute acoustic set, telling stories, sharing a drink of scotch with some of the people around there to create an event. Overall, that event, Saucony grew in the 2 years following. Shoe sales going down. They actually jumped 2 spots, go from number 5 to number 3 in specialty retail running, partially as a result of the event. And now that property that we used to get for $28,000 a night is $150,000 a night, as it just made the Michelin Guide last year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to design something like that with that lens. And really goes down to, and this is actually shared in the EO planning guide, why? And there's these 5 questions we ask. It's really interesting when you think about, no duh, Chris, why, who, where, what. But the interesting thing is whenever we plan offsites, and maybe this is EO, is we go right to where, right? Versus we don't talk about why. What do we need to achieve? What behavior do we want changed? What connection? If we're driving home at the end of our retreat on Friday, what would make us feel something different? Versus we tend to go to where and what are we doing? Those are valid and those are awesome. But I want to present the idea of spending more time on why. And as you think about not only for your forum retreats, but maybe your own company's gatherings, bring it to life of, oh my gosh, we just need to connect as a team. It's a more remote world. We're in the office only 2 days a week. I need my LT to get together. We just need to connect. We need to create the most talked about golf product 3 years from now. Can we just get in a room offsite and design the most talked about golf product? We are focused on everything but our core customer. This was Dickies. They were actually chasing fashion and painter pants this past year versus workwear. We have to build confidence in our sales leadership. FootJoy, right? You think foot is in FootJoy. Well, apparel sales were going up and all of a sudden the highest profit yield item, salespeople were chasing the high turn. We have to remind them why footwear is king. Or we just need to stop for a moment. right? That idea of we're kind of going into an interesting world right now. So as we think about the who, I look at it, our attendees, whoever's coming, your formates, we're all elastic bands. All. Some are that tight lobster, very rigid and strong. Some will break, right? And as I think about our attendees, especially in the COVID world, or even as we enter 2025 and some of the uncertainty, a lot of our attendees are showing up a little differently. So we have to be thoughtful about what we're planning for them and the tolerance. And first thing I always think about when I get a group of people together is what is their tolerance to be influenced, right? We're going to spend $10,000 on the keynote who's going to talk about this and rev them up when they have no motivation because they don't believe in our sales strategy going forward. So what is their ability to actually intake information of value so you can design it the right way? Comfort is a big thing post-COVID, right? As a result of people have been more introverted, more isolated, thinking about creating more comfort. Dollar signs, right? There's different levels of affluence in our groups. Some people have fine tastes for the finest of scotch. Some can't tell the difference of a $13 bottle of wine and a $100 bottle of wine. So thinking about those nuances. Interdynamics, when you get people sometimes in a shared house or a shared kind of a nice little offsite, you have personalities coming together, different styles. Maybe you're more familial in how you're gathering, sharing rooms and thinking about that. And then the final thing is preferences. And the one trend I was actually just reading an industry article, the biggest change in meetings and events and budget spend is 20% of budget spend of F&B is going to non-alcoholic drinks. Thanks, Sandy, for inspiring us with wellness. A lot of the younger generations are choosing not to drink for wellness initiatives. And it's also that dry January effect is lasting longer, especially in Q1 programs. We're seeing our bar bills go down a little bit lower. So we get to the where part, right? Which is this fun part. And the awesome thing in 2025, there is more places, what we call inventory of options, from boutique hotels, big hotels, to these kind of offsite properties. And it's really kind of cool as you think about designing the experience, the palette, the canvas of where your playground or your base camp is, can be everything from an Airstream to a lodge at Sunday River to the new Conrad at Orlando. And this is the idea of once you have your objective of your why, you start to have your people. What makes sense? Where we go? What do we choose? And what's been interesting in my property that we run is we actually have on both. And one thing you may or may not know is Airbnb and VRBO are tuned to different audiences. So if you search 8 bedrooms, 6 bathroom properties, there's only 6 in all of New England on Airbnb versus there's over 50 on VRBO. So if you're looking for big gathering houses, because VRBO is tuned to longer stay, higher affluent homes versus Airbnb is going after younger people who want 2 nights, usually urban and lower budgets. So as you think about starting there. Some of the other dynamics we're seeing in kind of what I call inventory planning is whether it's 2015 or 2025, there's 3 types of people competing for renting those houses and boutique hotels: the business traveler, the leisure travel, the group traveler. Right now, we're seeing the COVID effect coming off. And so leisure went down for the first time in the last 3 years. It went down 10% in Q1. That's starting to be made up as people start to travel more. But as you see there's different patterns of traveling. That business usually goes beginning a week, leisure is going on the weekends. So if you're looking for an offsite, looking to maximize output or find a hole of space, Wednesday to Friday for a 2-night is your optimal time, whether you're going to the Omni Boston or down to Chatham bars. The other thing we've seen is right around COVID, it kind of spiked, is there was a lot of hotel inventory planning and building, and that's been coming online in 24 and 25. So we are at optimal levels of high inventory, and some markets over index. So a perfect example, Austin, Texas has too much inventory. So their occupancy levels are down about 10% right now. So as you think about destinations, it's tough to get into Nashville, still a very popular city. Boston is you can't build enough because there's not enough footprint to build new inventory, even as they go higher. So thinking about what markets like Orlando or other places, even thinking about some of the Carolinas have great inventory options. And the other trend we're seeing in hotels is we've seen hotels seeing the opportunity of the glamping trend. So in the last 18 months, all the major brands have invested in. Hyatt bought Under Canvas, which are these temporary pop-ups around national parks. There's one up in Acadia. Marriott just bought Postcard Cabins and bought Trailborn, which is a national parks property. And then Hilton just took over AutoCamp, which has 16 locations. And these are coming super really good. Some of the ways we find properties, we have industry articles and resources like BizBash that tells about cool venues. We have some small market meetings. We also have some informal networks. And I actually curate a list. If you ever want to say, Chris, Where could I go with 8 people for here? I curate about 75 properties. I'm always thinking about when my clients come to me, oh my gosh, this is where you want to go. And it's kind of the Dutton Hot Springs 3 years from now. But as we think about where to go, right? A lot of your parameters and your kind of your governance is, hey, we want to go within 4 hours of a flight, right? And so thinking about lift is an important part to choosing. And there's high densities. Usually most of the middle of the country would tend to go to Chicago and keep flying out west. But when you go, we start to think also about temperatures, right? What's desirable? And once you start to overlay these maps about airport proximity or travel proximity and temperatures, this starts to say, where can I go? And then when you think about maximizing budgets, it's as simple as this, right? So Adam, I know you got a place up in Waterville, but not the best time in December and January to go up to Stratton or, to Stowe. But hey, April, you can get up into the mountains pretty cost effective. Just like the Cape and Islands, you can get great deals in Nantucket or Upper Cape, going to the Cape Codder, or even auto camp on Cape Cod in kind of the late fall, early winter. And then I like to say in New England, there's these third tier destinations that, some of us know about, whether it's Western Mass or even thinking Litchfield Hills or Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, these perimeter areas, or even the Worcester Central Valley's got some options there that if you're thinking about different experiences, we've done the same old, we want to mix it up, or we want to maximize our budget, so we're only spending 20 to 30% on accommodations, so we have more money for the activities. So we then go to the what, right? We've got a place, we know where we're going, we know who our group is, right? Every agenda is different. So a lot of the work we do is sometimes has a lot of strategy planning, relationship building, those kind of outcomes. And the one thing I would share is less is more. I tend to be a fire hose. So over the years, I've learned with our clients, one activity I've done with 3 times and once with my own team is what we call the non-agenda. We actually have people work on something in advance, send out an agenda, and when they arrive, we say, actually, the next 2 days, everyone thinks you're in meetings. Only thing we're going to do is meet for dinners. The rest of your time is yours. You want to go golfing, go to the pool. You want to catch up on some work. It's kind of brilliant. And every time we've done that effect, all the groups have said, are you kidding me? The gift of time is sometimes a really important thing to do. And people actually do puzzles and everything. We always think about content with a screen, right? Or sitting around a U-conference shape table. I'm old school. I used to be an AV when I grew up. I love a flip chart, and I love putting flip charts in different environments on the beach before people arrive at 10 a.m. Doing your session, you're already up, especially if you're going to West Coast or East Coast people. Start at 7 a.m., do your content 7 to 10, tip $100 to the guys with the beach chairs. Need to have a difficult conversation. This is in Jackson, New Hampshire. We had a group, we put a flip chart in the river and had people go down, sit on a rock, put their legs to have a very difficult conversation. It doesn't have to be a flip chart. Maybe it's a question you want to solve with your company about, oh, what's the competition doing better right now? And that's in cocktail hour. And then you bring those boards outside and you sit out on the beach. We tend to live in ballrooms and walls versus get outside. You're always familiar with table topics, which are great. We tend to think about how do we think about content coming differently. So this is something we created. We actually created a Wellbeing Walks podcast, and we've actually brought to some events because everyone's got a smartphone, and on Amazon, you can get a wired lav for $17, and everyone has voice recorders, is we send people out on a 45-minute walk to answer 2 questions. And then we come back and we edit it. And each week after the event, we share 2 people's walks of what they shared. It's kind of like almost like a micro podcast of relationship building, getting different learning and extending beyond the event. Because a lot of things just stop at 12 o'clock on Friday.
What is that?
Another,
Chris? What's the name
we
of the
call
podcast?
that just Wellbeing Walks or Walk and Talks.
And that's like a legit podcast out on Spotify and Apple?
Yeah, Wellbeing Walks is, yes.
All right.
Another one we do is cocktail sessions, is we are excited to get the cocktail hour, especially when we're in California. When we get groups of 8 people, sometimes over 3 nights, we say 2 to 3 of you are going to present something you're an expert on. No visual aids, nothing. You get 15 minutes to teach the group something, whether it's teaching someone how to cook risotto, right? Or teach how to give a presentation. You're allowed to have notes and that's it. And then 5 minutes of questions. And we do 2 to 3 people every night. So by the end of 3 nights, you've had a great hour, some learning, and then we pair those people up at the tables for dinner so that they can continue the conversation. I'm also a fan of more is more. So I know there's some groups here are super active, want to get out. which is great. And when I think about that idea of temperature within 2 hours of Boston, I don't know about you, but I love Charlotte. Charlotte's great because it's got a low cost over inventory and hotel. And 18 minutes outside of the city is the Whitewater Outdoor Center, which is a man-built, was built for the Olympics back in the day. And I don't know about you, but when I go whitewater rafting, I hate sitting in a bus wearing a smelly, wet, jacket and helmet in Maine bouncing around versus on this in an hour, you get 4 whitewater runs. There's actually kind of a toboggan brings you up. And when you're there, you could spend 2 days and not repeat an activity from zip lining to they have this kind of a climbing wall over a pool that you just fall into the 30-foot deep pool. You can learn to kayak roll, whitewater rafting, so much fun stuff. And you're in Charlotte. So you go back to the hotel downtown, which is great. I love music. I come from touring with bands. And while you can't always afford Colin Hay, when you're in places like Nashville, when you're in places like Austin, Texas, and even Georgia, for $500, you can get a local musician and give them more money than they would make on a Thursday night and have them play a cocktail hour and do covers and make it fun and bring in engaging stuff just to spice it up. I'm an older person. One thing we've done with groups, sometimes we have older people, is we say arrive with a vinyl record and we buy one of those little Crossley things. And we say in cocktail hour, you're going to play a song from the record and talk about why you chose that record. And usually there's kind of a vinophile there who will say, oh, I'll take all these home, or people actually take them. And I'll see them on the people's walls of some of my corporate clients. We also think about keynotes as one delivery option. At Ember, we like to maximize. So Saucony, a running company, this is Chef Eduardo, who's not only a chef, but he actually has a bionic arm and leg because he got in a horrible hunting accident when he was out bear hunting in Montana, hit an electrical trap and lost his arm and his leg. But what happened is after that, to keep his mental health, he started running and he kind of became a little influencer. So we actually had him run in the mornings with Saucony, and then we had him oversee and work with the venue to steer the menu and then introduce the courses and cook it and talk about that idea. And then he gave a keynote on the final lunch morning about what he's working on. I'm a big fan of private chefs. I think they're make life easier for the retreat attendees. I mean, I love a crock pot, but sometimes the ability of cooking, cleaning, and actually conversing on a meal, playing to the strengths, whether they love wine, but sometimes your budget can't always allow it. Quick question. What nights are restaurants mostly closed on?
Monday.
Right. Monday night off season in North Carolina, Holden Beach, you can go to restaurants and say, hey, you want to make $400 cooking us dinner and maybe get some fresh tuna off the boat? And they start to storytell and then they say, hey, come down tomorrow night, Tuesday night for cocktails. Beers are on me, guys. So thinking about ways, I'm always a fan of making my budgets work for other maximizations ideas. And then while you can always bring in someone to do wine tasting or tequila tasting, how about on demanding it, spending more money at the New Hampshire State Liquor Store and loading up on 200 bottles of tequila versus paying someone and just doing a placemat and kind of talking about it and organically doing it. And then I know EO is a big book community. We often do 2 things. We have people arrive with books to our offsites, and then people walk away with a book they didn't bring. Or if there's a theme, we buy books all around it and put it in all the common areas. So this was a creative design inspiration one where we brought all different books to think about. So during the downtimes, they could kind of think about stuff. And I'll leave you with one last story. And goes back to that one of FootJoy Golf. We need to create the most talked about golf product 3 years from now. So any snowboarders, skiers out there familiar with the BOA system, that little dial you turn on your helmet or on your shoes? The BOA is actually in several footwear categories, but it's all the same lacing system. And FootJoy really wanted to partner with them and say, how do we do this different than Puma? How do we show up different than Echo? And so what they said is, hey, Ember, let's get a bunch of people in a house from North Carolina, 4 people from their product design team, 4 from our team. Let's load up that fridge with a bunch of Yingling and beer. And for the next 3 days, let's design the most talked about golf product 3 years from now. And we just allowed them organically come together and play with shoes. We got competitive shoes. We actually went out shopping to a golf store one day to see how it's merchandised. We gave them pieces of paper and just said, draw. And even if you're not the designer, you're a salesperson, draw something. Tell me why you're doing that. We gave them a break in the afternoon. You saw there was a pool at the property, and this was an off-season rental. We did a build the boat. We're like, you're all designers and engineers. Build your own boat out of these $30 in supplies and have some fun in the afternoon. And what started to happen over the 3 days, there was all these windows on this waterfront beach resort. They became fully covered with designs of shoes. And every morning we'd have a presentation back and then also a present back at end of day. And there was lots of downtime. But the amazing miracle came on the last day when we were out there. We took a pontoon boat ride. And what happened was on this, two guys who hadn't sat next to each other and came up with the ultimate design idea about how can we do different bases differently. And so they made this little note on the boat and brought it back. And during dinner, they said, guys, we came up with this, and we put it up on the wall. And 2.5 years later, that became the PGA show winning Hyper Boa Flex shoe. Sold the most of any category, is now a franchise shoes for them. And what I like to say is either big or small, when you spend 95% of your time thinking about why, what are we gonna do? That effort, the 5% is easy of finding the place, the activities. So I'll open up, and in the deck, I know people are gonna ask me, hey, Chris, what are your top 5 destinations you recommend right now? I put a list in the deck that you can check on, and also some lists on some industry news, and also a website Cvent that can be an option for finding traditional venues.
Amazing.
Ta-da.
Yay.
Thank you so
Chris,
much, Chris.
That was great.
Awesome. Like
Wow.
unbelievably awesome.
Yeah.
And
Great stories.
You're such a good storyteller, man. Like you're a pro.
Occasionally. Good thing I'm in events, presentations.
Wendy, so this isn't solicitation because I'm asking a question. Wendy suggested that do you do this for hire? Like, can you help plan retreats?
Yeah, so Ember can do that. So we have our venue up in New Hampshire, which is I think we actually have a special for EO members or EO groups when you chapter it. So I can share that out in the chat. If you ever want to visit it for a day, it's the weekend. We keep it very low use. And then, yeah, I'm happy to always give ideas, tee you up. We do it like you saw there for Dickies. A lot of our clients, we do all their leadership team and management team offsites.
And I think I came in after you posted the link, and I'm too impatient to wait for Adam to send it out. Can you
Yeah,
the link again?
I'll put it there. Yep, there's a document in there at the top of the chat with everything you saw in there with links to. But
no, I don't think it's
Anyone
there
that came in after that didn't get it.
yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll put it in right now. Dun, dun,
I
dun,
have a
dun.
quick question. Chris, how often do you see chapters doing chapter retreats? That's something we used to do in Boston.
I don't know. I'm the new guy. You guys tell me.
Oh. When was the
I know
last
there's
time
one last year I went to.
when was the last time we did a chapter retreat?
Years
Last
ago.
year.
Yeah, last
We-
year.
Oh,
What was
I
last-
got
oh,
I got
the-
that's true. The
I know
Connecticut.
what you mean, Shauna. You mean like a destination thing. Last year was the casino thing, which was really good. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was the president, Sandra, we did a chapter retreat to Cuba, which was pretty awesome.
Remember,
Oh, cool.
there was a year that went to Iceland.
Yeah,
7 years
Iceland would
ago.
be a good destination, but it looks like Charlotte looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, every year something changes. It's just like when I grew up, I spent like I think 7 years in New Orleans. That's where every meeting I did was. And then it was San Diego. Austin was hot 3 years ago. I think Savannah, Charleston just went through. I know. Is that Sandra's going to
That's where we're
Savannah?
going,
So yeah, that's the Carolinas are hot. Nashville. It all changes.
All
Hey,
right.
Chris, I think Kevin
I have
put
to
some
jump
out.
off.
You might be sharing the slides
Yeah.
to just the admin.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, we're not seeing them.
How do I do that?
Just change
Click
the
on
little blue thing to everyone instead of
Oh, I keep sending everyone. I'm sending it to Adam. Adam's got it twice.
All the slides.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Coming up. 2 seconds. Maybe more than that. Great.
Hey,
Chris,
Chris, Meredith posted in the chat that she's led a few events and retreats. She's got a music therapy business. She might be somebody creative for you to bring in. She wants to connect afterwards.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
magic
I'd love
in
to
that
connect
connection.
too,
Thanks,
as I'm-
Wendy.
I'm on the visual side.
oh, thank God, Chris, there it is.
Thanks, Chris.
There it is. You got
Yeah,
it.
this was great, Chris. Thanks so much for putting this together. I think the COVID has changed a lot of the event space, but it was awesome to see how you've been continuing to move it forward. And I think with select groups where people are looking to gather already makes a big difference too, rather than sort of a B2C open-ended retreat model too. So this was super helpful.
Hey,
Awesome.
Meredith, you haven't done one of these on music therapy, have you?
I have not, no, but I'd be happy to someday, Dave.
Adam, there we go. I would love to go to that one.
Yeah, this was great.
Oh, I can see. What is the member rate? All right, do we just
Chris-
hear awkwardly? Like what happens now?
Chris, could you also share the property you have in New Hampshire? You mentioned that you have one that your organization has, or you
Yeah,
have.
absolutely.
That would be
Yeah.
great too.
And your contact
Ember.
information, Chris, and all your
Escapes.com.
tips and tricks.
And yeah, take them. Where the meeting industry is the most recycling friendly industry. We all take each other's ideas, which is great.
So Chris, one question, and I'm obviously not objective because I'm lucky to have you in my forum and you're organizing our own
Yeah.
for within 2 months' time. So we will be able to experience firsthand everything you just said, right? But my
Maybe.
point in a, when you're doing like a company retreat,
Yeah.
there's like a goal for the company. We want to whatever, right? In your case, reinvent ourselves or whatever for the golf shoe company, right? Forum retreat is like a blank slate, right? People leading to personal, people leading to business, people leading to whatever it is, experiencing the outdoors or whatever. So what is your experience in terms of aligning what very different people may want out of a retreat, which is not just, go to a spa or whatever, right?
Yeah, Luis, that's a great question. And so it's probably similar to our own work with our clients is if there was get the consensus, right? So that sometimes is just like, I know EO's got the thing of the edging. So it's just what are the top three things we want to do is kind of do an IDS brainstorm and then commit to like, if we did these three things well, would everyone find value out of it? Whether it's build relationships, get outside, stop doing stuff. But then really say, all right, what do we have agreement on for the number one? Because the truth is, master of none, right? If you do 7 things okay versus one thing really well. And I've seen that higher success output and actually greater group satisfaction when you nail it on the one thing. It doesn't mean you can't still do 5% or check a box on something in those little things, like whether that's just like, hey, we want to do yoga together, and that's tertiary. But is yoga really the focus, which it could be, then design that to be fully yoga based. And a lot of some stuff, there's actually with our other groups, we do a lot of pre-work going into retreats or offsites. So we have people come in prepared. So it's not just like we really have, when you think about from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. or whenever sometimes the drinks are, you have a finite amount of time in 3 days. It's usually less than 20 hours of work once you take breaks, bathrooms, showers, and then personal preferences out. That's not a lot of content time. And I rather steer 10 to 12 hours designed around that one thing. It's just like cascading communication, as Bill tells me all the time, 7 times until you hear it for the first time. Or when we recently had, for those of you aware of Dickies, and Luis, you'll understand this, is the Dickies kind of goal was, hey, we're a 100-year historic brand. And our Europe team is chasing fashion, right? Because the white painter pant was very popular in subculture, and in Europe, it was huge. Versus 78% of everything Dickies sales is workwear based, right? Medical, construction, and Europe's sales started to decline. And the goal was, how do we have a conversation other than the president talking about it? So one of the ideas we designed, I was like, well, let's think about who are your peers. And we went, well, Bauer Hockey is in the area. I know the CEO. Bauer Hockey is 100 years old. And talk about a core consumer is the 14-year-old elite hockey player who buys 3 sticks a year, $300, 2 pairs of $900 skates, and will have a 6-year trajectory. And so we invited Ed Canali up, CEO, to have a fireside conversation, who actually also happened to run Bauer Europe when he grew up, to talk about the idea of a global alignment that let's see wider. Yeah, there's always going to be the top of the pyramid of chasing fashion. And they had a 90-minute conversation, again, from another peer sharing in the conversation, and allowed the GM of Europe to ask questions. Well, but why would we're going to miss this opportunity versus, and Ed had told a great story. He said, listen, we were chasing girls hockey. Girls hockey is important to the growth of the game, but our core consumer we can never take off, because a lot of our insights inform women's hockey in the future. But ultimately, 70% of the buying audience is still a 13 to 18-year-old elite hockey player segment. But the growth of, incremental growth of sales will be women's hockey, or chasing other trends, or roller hockey. Like Europe wanted to chase roller hockey, and Bauer is like, I get that. That's big in Italy, not big anywhere. There's less than 1% of the community is buying that. As you can see, I've never been a microphone I don't like. I like to talk, team. Sorry.
Yep.
Good thing you're interesting.
Chris, if
I
you're
gotta
not happy
run.
with your
Thank
forum,
you.
if you're not happy with your forum, there's plenty that are looking. Just saying.
Fantasy forum draft.
You know, Luis, he can be a little.
Yeah, I know.
Very happy. Very good satisfaction.
Awesome. Any other questions before we head out?
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for organizing
Thank
this.
you. Thank you so much, Chris. This is awesome.
Good seeing everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Chris. Nice job.
Thanks, everyone.